I am really excited for our speaker today. And what we're going to do is something that is a little bit different, maybe in terms of the format and the feel of this speaker. This is going to be a little bit more of a conversation than we've had in the past. And the reason is that the topic is something that I think is exceptionally important for you as entrepreneurs, but also as individuals. What we'll be talking about is self-advocacy. And what that means, you're going to find out in a little bit. But our speaker today was the first female wrestler on her high school boys team. And she owns a school record for getting pinned the most and the fastest. And the only way that you can get both of those records is if you get up every time you're pinned. Kat has launched 3 organizations that serve incarcerated individuals. Hustle 2.0, which has a unique partnership with SUU, the Prison Entrepreneurship Program, and Defy Ventures. Over 21 years, 30,000 individuals have graduated from the programs that she has launched. And she has led 7,000 volunteer mentors. These are investors, these are executives, and other mentors. She's led them to help mentor incarcerated individuals. These programs reduce violence and have produced industry-leading rates of recidivism that are under 10%. And as a personal aside, I have had the opportunity on multiple occasions to go to prison with Kat, and I am not embarrassed to say that I found it extremely intimidating, if not a little terrifying, to go into a maximum security prison where most of the individuals are convicted of violent offenses. And one of the things that I found so remarkable about those visits is that this relatively small woman can command the attention and respect of people in those environments. It's really, if leadership means anything at all, if that word has any meaning, you are about to hear from an extraordinary leader. She's raised over $30 million. She has numerous awards. She told me not to get into all of them. I'll just mention a couple. She's named one of 17 global influencers expanding human possibility through technology by WIRED and Nokia. Top 40 women over 40 by Forbes magazine. Sorry, I'm doing more of this than you asked for.
It's your show.
Named by Fast Company magazine as one of the 100 most creative people in business. Please welcome Kat Jackson.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat. I am super excited to be here. I have given probably hundreds of talks over the last 20-ish years. I've never spoken on this topic before, and I think that the topic of self-advocacy might be one of the most important messages that I can possibly share. So self-advocacy basically means getting what we want and making a plan for getting what we want, standing up for it. And how many of you have heard that just don't take no for an answer? That's what you should do. Well, just not taking no for an answer, that sounds nice. I feel like that might be oversimplified, and it might actually get you in a lot of trouble in certain cases. I mean, imagine if you're applying for an internship and they turn you down and you're like, sorry, I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm going to show up tomorrow. Or if you're out on a date and you ask for consent to kiss your date and they say no and you're like, I'm not taking no for an answer, that might not lead to the best result. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making an action plan, because no doesn't need to be the final answer. And a lot of times when we face rejection, a setback, or an obstacle, the easiest thing to conclude, well, before I go there, why don't you think of a recent obstacle that you faced or a recent rejection that you've received? How did you respond? Are you remembering it right now? Are you bringing that to mind? So a lot of times it can be easy to think, oh, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Or I knew I shouldn't have tried. I'm not smart enough to go into that field, or my parent told me that I shouldn't have even tried that, or whatever. So it's so easy to prematurely kill a dream and say that it wasn't meant to be, when we could be leaving so much on the table. So when we don't advocate for ourselves, it could cut off an entire future, and you have your whole life ahead of you right now. If you shut down a whole future potential path for yourself because of one rejection, it could kill, you never know what it could kill. So I'm going to share a bunch of stories with you where it could have killed the dream. It could have been the end of it, and it wasn't. And I'll share with you some of the strategies on how I got there. And my goal here today, well, let me tell you what my goal is not. If you sit here, listen to my stories, and you end up going like, oh, Kat is so inspiring. Wow, that's amazing what she did. If that's the result, I failed here today. My goal is that you hear these stories, yes, that you get inspired, but that then you take what you hear from me and that you think to yourself, how can I apply this to my life? What is one change? If each of you picks one small or big way to advocate for yourself today as a result of the stories and examples that I hear, then I've won. Then I'm glad that I've come. Okay? So I want you to be listening for that the whole time. And I'll be pairing you up so that you can work out some exercises and apply from the stories that I've shared. And one more thing on this is the prison world is a pretty male-dominated industry. So as a woman who started doing prison work when I was 26, I'm 47 now, had I not been advocating for myself, I wouldn't have been able to advocate on behalf of more than 30,000 people who have now graduated from the programs that I've started. So by advocating for myself, I'm also advocating for others. And I don't know the culture that you've been raised in, but whether you're a man or a woman, a lot of times we are raised in a way that where people tell us that advocating for ourselves would be selfish, or that you don't want to be pushy or aggressive. It's much better to be nice and polite and go with the flow. And think about how you were raised, the messages that you were given, and how those will serve you. So I am not advocating for being aggressive, rude, or anything, but I am advocating for being direct and for coming up with a plan and for not just accepting no as the final answer, but finding a smart way around the obstacles. So that's what we're going to talk about.
That's great. And so just if I could jump in for a second, I'm friends with Kat, and as we were getting caught up a couple months ago, she told me a couple stories, just as one does getting caught up, and I thought, these are stories that I want you to share with my classes. And so there's a couple that we have in mind that I want her to talk about. But before we get to these, I wonder if we can back up and just to kind of give you a sense of her mindset. Can you talk about the dream you had as a 7-year-old and take it from there?
Yeah. So I was Canadian born. And my father was a very ambitious engineer who taught me to be really ambitious. So as a Canadian, I wanted to become the Prime Minister of Canada. When I was 7, he said, we're moving to the United States. And I said, well, that's nice, but then I probably won't get to be the Prime Minister. So I guess I want to become the President of the United States. But then when I learned that you have to be American born to be the President of the United States, I was bummed, and I told my father, this is bad news. And he said, why don't you think about it and come up with a plan for how you could still become the President of the United States. So I thought about it all for the next 24 hours, and I came up with a plan, and I told my dad the next day, okay, I got it. I'm going to become a lawyer. I'm going to change the Constitution of the United States, and then I'm going to become the president. So until I changed my future career aspirations, which politics are not of interest to me at this point, but until then, my father went around introducing me as the future president of the United States. So I did grow up with a father who taught me, like, when you see a problem, think about, don't say, oh, I can't do it. Say, how could I do it? So if you ask yourself that, how could I do it? And if you don't know the answer, who can you brainstorm with around how could I get there? How could I get what I want? So I was raised with that kind of a mentality. And I'm grateful for that. I've applied that mentality to nearly every problem that I face.
And so the first story that we have in mind, I think, is maybe especially relevant to students. This because this harkens back to your days as a student at University of Berkeley and trying to get into, well, your move from engineering to a school of business. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I went to UC Berkeley in California, or Cal, and I started off as a bioengineering major, and it wasn't for me. I was failing out miserably, like really failing grades. And I knew I had to get out of engineering, but then I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I have no idea what I want to study. And for a summer internship, I ended up applying for a job that was for a management consulting firm, an internship with them. And funny side note, the job required, it said one of the requirements was an entrepreneurial spirit. And I read that and I was like, what the heck is, I didn't even know how to pronounce entrepreneurial spirit. And I applied anyway, I got the job. And that's where I learned, like, oh, this is what business is. I love business. This is cool. So at Cal, they had an undergraduate business program, but you had to apply to get in for your junior year. And I was like, I'm going to apply. And I did, but I was going up against all the nerds with all the 4.0s or the high GPAs. So I knew that I didn't have a great chance of getting admitted, but I shot my shot anyway, and I got denied. And I was absolutely crushed when I got the denial letter from the Haas Undergrad School of Business. So what did I do? I wrote them a 7-page appeal letter. And I said, I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but it was something along the lines of, like, I didn't get the right start. I didn't get grades that made me proud. But if you give me a chance, I promise you that I will deliver. And they let me in. So that's, I didn't say, I'm not taking your no for an answer, but I said, will you reconsider me if I do X, Y, and Z? And I wonder how you could apply that to your lives. So I actually have a little application exercise for you on your worksheets here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to turn to just one person next to you. So pair up right now. Just anybody. Don't look around. Tap the person on the shoulder who's going to be your partner. Okay? If you just did the so shh. If you just did the tapping, if you tap the person, your partner A. If you got tapped, your partner B. So in this exercise here, I want you to remember that rejection isn't just something that happens in the past. It's all something that we deal with all the time. So maybe you got turned down for an internship, a date, a leadership position, a scholarship, or something else that was personal. You can use personal or business or school as an example. So I'd like you to answer some of the questions that you see on here. What's one recent rejection that you've experienced? Did you ask for feedback, or did you just accept the result? What could you do right now to learn from it, improve, and to try again? Also, if that rejection led you to write off any possibilities, like I'm never again gonna fill in the blank, share that with your partner. And who could you reach out to today to get clarity, a second chance, or a new opportunity? Now you're gonna have 90 seconds, which is probably not enough time to answer all of that, but that's why you have this take-home worksheet, so you can keep talking about this. So you're gonna have 90 seconds on the clock. Partner A, you're gonna share your answers to these questions. So turn to your partner, and then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, time, and I expect you to just zip it right there, and then we're going to go to partner B. Are we clear? All right, partner A, it is your turn. Answer the question. Ready, set, go. 3, 2, 1, time. Great, good job. That was exercise number 1.
All right, so for the next exercise, this one is kind of moving more from the personal to the professional. People often want mentors and face rejection as far as that goes. Can you share how you turned a 5-minute conversation into a lifetime mentor?
Yeah, I am excited about this story. So how many of you would like to have a mentor, like an awesome mentor who does what you want to do? Okay. I always wanted mentors. So when I was 22 and I started working in venture capital, I started to email people, like even famous business leaders, like, would you be my mentor? And I'll talk about how that doesn't work to get a mentor. At least it didn't for me. But I got rejected from so many people. But then when I started my first prison organization at the age of 26 called Prison Entrepreneurship Program. I had kept hearing and reading about this guy named Steve Mariotti, who was the founder of the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And I think at the time it was like a $50 million nonprofit. And I was about to start teaching, or I was teaching entrepreneurship in prisons, but I wanted best-in-class curriculum. I wanted to learn all of his ways. So I started emailing him, no response. Emailed again, no response. I emailed him 6 times. And on the 6th time, I didn't get an answer from him. I got an answer from his assistant, who said, I don't remember, but it was something like, fine, Steve will meet with you if you get off his back. So we set up a meeting. I was super excited. I had read and studied everything I could, both on Steve and on his curriculum. And I prepared for the meeting. I wrote up 3 pages of questions. So that's something I would share with you is, I didn't just say like, hey, can I pick your brain? And just like, oh, I don't know what I want to talk about. I had very specific things that I wanted to get out of it. So I show up at his office. The meeting was on a Friday at 4 p.m. I showed up half an hour early because I was so excited, all ready with my questions. And I was sitting there, and the time was ticking by, and his assistant comes out to the lobby, and she's like, I'm so sorry, Steve's in a meeting that is running long. She came out a couple times, and I was like, no problem, I'm just happy to be here. And at 4:50, she comes out, and she goes, I am terribly sorry to do this, but Steve has to leave the office at 5 o'clock. He just ran out of time, so can we reschedule? And I said, what did I say? I can talk to him while he leaves. So I said, I understand, and I don't want to make him late because he has to go catch a train at 5. I said, can I just go back there and shake his hand real quick just to say hello? And she said, sure. So I go back there and I said, Steve Mariotti, I am so honored to meet you. I understand that you have to leave. And I show him my 3 pages of questions. And I said, I know that we don't have time to get into these now, but I would do anything to get to sit down with you to ask you these questions. And he's like, well, great. How about we reschedule another time? And I said, I have an idea. I said, I heard that you're going to catch a train. How about if I ride to the train station with you and I will buy myself a round trip ticket on the train. If I can sit on the train and you're only going to give me an hour, so after an hour of time, I'll ride the train right back. That's hard to say no to, right? Because he already messed me out of my time. So I ended up riding the train, I think 3 or 4 hours in the direction that he was going, and I was glad to ride it right back. And that, so what could have been a 5-minute meeting turned into him being my mentor for a few decades. I got all of my questions that I had and a lot more over time answered. But I didn't start off, so here are some of my tips and tricks on how to get a mentor and how to not be able to score a mentor. Don't email someone and say, will you be my mentor? Because mentor implies like a longer term commitment or relationship. And if somebody doesn't even know you, why are they going to want to commit? I also came to him with very specific questions that were relevant. It wasn't like, I have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. Will you be my mentor? It was like, here's something that you're an expert in. Here's something I'm learning right now. Here's what I'm already doing that is kind of relevant to what you're doing. And if you invest in me, here is what the ROI of your time will be, basically, right? Like show the person that there's going to be a return on investment of their time. Because those of us who are leading organizations, we don't have a lot of time to spare. So if I invest time in someone or something, I want to know that it's going to pay off. So I was able to show that to him. So if you want a mentor, you can ask someone for really specific things. You could email them, for example, or hit them up on LinkedIn and write 3 to 5 very specific questions that you want answers to. And ask for a 15-minute meeting. It's harder to turn down a 15-minute meeting than a 1-hour meeting. And after you have that meeting, take notes, and any wisdom that you get from that mentor, after you put that wisdom into action, go back to them and say, hey, Steve, you know how you told me to do this, this, and this? I went and did it, and guess what it led to? So then Steve gets a message like, oh, that translated my time and her invested in making this world a better place. So guess what? The next time I have questions for Steve, do you think he's going to want to spend that time with me? Yes, because I'm a good steward of his time. And I went back and thanked him and showed him the result of that investment. The second time I went back, do you think I went back and said, hey, Steve, now will you be my mentor? No. That's like going on a second date and saying, will you become my long-term partner? Like, you're still getting to know somebody. So I don't think I ever even asked him, will you become my mentor? I just kept asking for one more meeting, and then it became natural. Then we started to meet monthly. And any time that I asked him for anything, he would respond. So that's my advice on how to get a mentor. So turn to the next application exercise. This time, partner B will go first. You'll have 90 seconds. You can read the question there yourself on the mentoring. Ready? 90 seconds starts now. Go. 3, 2, 1, time. Good job.
I'm going to jump in here and mention I've traded quite a few emails with Kat. One thing that appears in a lot of these emails is a phrase that's particular to her, which is as promised. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, Tyler and a lot of folks here at SUU have been mentors to me and have contributed to our work. So when I meet with you and you give me a genius idea, which you do, and then I say, that sounds great, I'm going to do that. Now, I only say that if I really mean that I'm going to do that. Then I get it done, and then I write Tyler an email and says, hi, Tyler, as promised, yada, yada, here's what I did. What I'm doing every time is I'm saying, see, I'm all about it. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. That builds trust and credibility, which makes people like Tyler want to invest more in me and the programs that we're creating. So you can use that trick too.
That's great. So can we move to the next topic?
Yeah.
Next story. So sometimes advocating for yourself is important for your career. Sometimes the stakes are much higher and might involve matters of life and death. And I think it was this story, when Kat related this to me, that made me decide or made me suggest, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it was this story that prompted the idea of having a conversation strictly about self-advocacy. So can you tell that story?
See, that was his genius idea, this topic was. So yes, 1 year ago, I had a routine mammogram and they found pre-invasive cancer in my right breast. And the doctor said, you need to get on this right away. You need to get, right now they're it's pre-invasive cancer, so it's not spreading, but you need to get it removed. So I got on it. I called the hospital right away, and they said that for the procedure to remove it, they said it would take 8 weeks to schedule it. My doctor said, we don't like that. That's too long to wait. What do you do? If you're told it takes 8 weeks. I said, hey, do you have a cancellation list? Like, can I get on the cancel? They said, we never get cancellations because anyone who has this, no one's canceling this procedure. What would you do? Do you just say, I got to wait 8 weeks? Or do you, what? So I made an Excel spreadsheet of 10 hospitals in Utah that would take my insurance. And I started calling every one of them. The shortest time frame to get the procedure was 6 weeks. My doctors thought that was running a risk that they didn't want me to take. What would you do? You could start calling out of state, but I started to get the idea that, oh, there's not enough medical staff doing this procedure. They're probably going to be long wait lists almost everywhere. So I could just say, well, 6 weeks is the best I could do. But I said, I think I need to do better than that because my health is very important. So the next morning, I packed up my virtual office, my laptop and my cell phone and a couple things that I needed. I showed up at the hospital at 8 a.m. and I told the lady at the receptionist desk, I said, I understand that I went to the 6-week wait hospital. And I said, I understand that you don't have a cancellation list, but if it's okay with you, I have my virtual office here, and I'm going to sit here quietly just making calls and doing work because maybe there's a chance that someone will get stuck in traffic today and won't show up for their procedure. And if that happens and you're willing to just slide me into that spot, I would be very grateful. This is an urgent situation for me. And she looked at me like I was totally crazy. No one's ever done that before, she said. And I sat there until 5 o'clock that day, and they had no openings. Nobody got stuck in traffic. So I showed up again the next morning, 8 a.m., all day. It was 4:45 p.m. that day. And a tech came to me, and she said, we've never seen anybody doing this before. So we have talked a couple of the staff into staying overtime to do your procedure today. And I was like, yes. I would have sat there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks would have been faster than 6 weeks. It's my life, right? So I showed up. So I think one of the lessons from here is I could have accepted 6 weeks or the initial 8 weeks and just gone away and just said that that's all that there is to it. I could have tried to pay an arm and a leg to go out of state and not have it be covered by insurance, which wouldn't have been that good for me. But the people who just shut down and go away quietly, they're the easiest to be like, sorry, no cancellation, sorry, there's no way we can get it done. And I showed up. And by the way, the second day when I showed up at the receptionist's office, I went and got like these super deluxe cookies and dessert treats for the entire staff. I bought like a box of 20 of them because I was like, you know, they're giving me free office space. Why not get on their good side, right? So I was thinking like, how can I keep showing up here? How can I win the favor of the staff without imposing my will on them, without being overly pushy, but just saying this is really important to me? So when have you just kind of gone away quietly and done nothing? And when have you been really easy to ignore? And what could you do? What's a situation in your life that is truly urgent or truly important where you just backed off? And what's something that you could do in a seemingly impossible situation or where you thought it, okay, partner A, you're back up, 90 seconds, ready, set, go. All right, 3, 2, 1, time. Thank you. You guys are doing an amazing job of engaging. So, yeah. All right.
So advocating for yourself is not just about career and health. One of the things that is important to all of us is personal peace. And one of the things that can present the most challenge, one of the greatest challenges that can be presented to us as far as finding peace goes is some toxic relationships. And toxic relationships can be with friends, with romantic partners, and with family. And Kat has really a touching story related to that. Can you share that?
Yep. This was a very, very difficult form of self-advocacy for me. But advocating for myself with a boundary in this relationship, or in this case, like ending this relationship, has been a way of advocating for my mental health. And that is super important because I don't know what you're facing right now, but I know that many college students battle with depression, anxiety, and other challenges. And who in your life are you allowing to contribute to that? Who are you staying in relationship with that is not treating you in a way that you would ever allow somebody else to be treated that way? I want you to think about it. And sometimes the answer is to end the relationship. Sometimes it's to put a boundary into place. But if you don't, you can put a boundary into place, but like I did for years, I didn't enforce it. And if we don't enforce a boundary, it's like it doesn't even exist. So last exercise, do we have time? Or did I kind of run long?
No, we got time.
We got time?
Maybe 60 seconds.
Okay, 60 seconds on this one. Who do you need to put some boundaries into place with, or who could you cut out of your life if you were really having your own back? Partner A, go first. Ready, set, go. All right, 3, 2, 1, time. Shh. Thank you. Thank you for participating. I hope that out of today, one thing, just if one thing sticks with you, if you take one step, then this will have been an amazing investment of all of our time. So I'm honored to be here. I'm a huge fan of SUU. I'm so grateful to Tyler and the staff here who has made this possible. So thank you very much for your time and attention today.